TA Associates. We are a private equity firm. We were founded in 1968 in Boston. Where we fit, we do not do sort of early stage traditional venture capital as you may be familiar with, and we're not a buyout firm, but we invest in this middle ground. So we invest in companies that are up and running. These are companies that have revenue. They generally have profits. And in many cases, as Aaron mentioned, they were bootstrapped. And I'd like to spend 1 minute about bootstrapping. You know, in the United States, we talk a lot about venture capital and the number of companies started by venture capital. Venture capitalists fund about 3,000 to 5,000 companies a year. But in the United States, there's about 700,000 companies started. And some of these may be restaurants or groceries or smaller companies, but many, many companies are started by people who just do it and go out and get a customer before they get venture capital. And you know, companies like Hewlett Packard, Dell, Microsoft, eBay, Cisco Systems, these were all companies that were started without venture capital. They became profitable. They ultimately did raise venture capital and raise capital later on, but the original companies were started and became profitable without capital. So I always like to give a pitch for bootstrap companies. And so we invest in pure equity in companies. We also use some leverage, which means we will borrow money to provide some of the capital that we invest in companies. We also invest in companies only that are growing. So we really are big believers in growth as an engine of investment and generating returns. And Aaron, maybe next slide. Today, I think the general size of the company we invest in, these companies are generally valued about $200 to $300 million. They generally have some leverage, so about 4 times leverage involved in the portfolio, but they're growing rapidly. These are companies that are growing their earnings at more than 30% a year. And this is very different than traditional leverage buyout companies where they would maybe have 7 times leverage and the companies maybe are growing at much lower rates. And later on, we'll talk a little bit about the trade-off between growth and leverage. So in private equity, many of the job opportunities today don't come directly from undergraduate degrees. So you have to be thinking a step ahead. And so at least in the private equity world I'm in the LBO world, most of the people who are hired in entry-level positions are coming with either consulting or investment banking backgrounds. When you're a junior, ideally you would be talking to these firms about a summer job. And then if you have a summer job, in many cases, you will get an offer to stay. And if you didn't have a summer job with them, then in your senior year, you have to really be starting in early September. The hiring is for the investment banking firms is all done by November. And so you've got to start. And I can only say you've got to network through LinkedIn. If you find an investment bank that has an analyst program that you'd like to go to, see if you can find somebody from Davis who worked there and use that as a contact to get in and to figure out a way to get interviewed and get them your resume. I think you can try to participate in finance clubs, I think, which are being formed at Davis, or venture capital clubs, to get that exposure. But these people are not going to come to campus and they're not going to knock on your door. You've got to go out and create the opportunity. And you can do that, but you've got to do that, I'm afraid.